Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Woods Collab podcast. My name is Nikisha Woods, and this guy is
Mike Woods.
And we're here today to finish a conversation we started the last time we met when we talked about unhealthy conflict in the workplace. Today, we're going to talk about healthy conflict in a workplace, or healthy debate. Sometimes it's called that. So, Mike, when you think about unhealthy conflict versus healthy conflict in a workplace, what are some of the things that you think about as far as the differences?
Great question, and it's great perspective to have. When we think about unhealthy versus healthy, I like to relate a lot of things to food.
Okay.
So when I think about food, I get going on. No, but when you think about unhealthy, it's ultimately it's doing no good for you in the moment.
Yeah.
Could it be something that provides value to you? Yeah, it could. That's where it transitions to the healthy conflict. But ultimately, it's not doing any good for you. It's not doing any good for you. It's holding you back. It's hindering you. It's causing you to feel some type of unproductive way towards the thing or towards the person or towards the situation.
Yeah.
And then when you convert that over to the healthy conflict, those are things it may not be comfortable in the moment, but those are things, those are challenges, those are experiences, those are situations that could and do provide value to you. So it's all about, it goes back to the value that it's offering to you in that moment. And sometimes that value could be the way you're thinking about it. Because you could be going through a similar scenario that I'm going through, but if my mindset about the thing is different, for you, it could be healthy. For me, it could be unhealthy because of the way that we're thinking about it. So it's really all about the value that it provides to you as an individual.
Yeah, so what does it produce? Is it producing resentment? Is it producing noise or frustration, or people just got a bad attitude, or we're not actually providing the product that we want to provide? Or is it producing, yes, we're going to make the best thing because everyone had a chance to get their thoughts out? And the last time we talked about conflict in general, we talked about a disagreeing perspective. Right? The idea is presented and we may not both see it the same way. And so do I withhold my thought and viewpoint, or do I actually say the thing that I want to say, or I feel it needs to be said? And I really feel that it's important to call out too, the difference between healthy and unhealthy conflict is, are we making the disagreement about the thing or the person? Because I don't like you, or you said something to me in the kitchen, or you make a face when I ask a question. Now, if I'm making our disagreement about that versus there is this project that we're working on together, and I think there's a better way to make the project happen, or I have questions about the project, I think that that's a different thing. And so I think that's what happens a lot of time too, is that people internalize the conflict, because sometimes whether it's healthy or unhealthy, it can feel uncomfortable, right?
That's true.
Like you have that you clutch your pearls, right? You have that moment where you're like, wow, did this just happen? Or this doesn't quite feel right. We talked about the last time, sometimes people run towards it and they feel more comfortable with it. And sometimes people run against it because they feel a little less comfortable with it.
Yeah, that's true. And if you think about certain scenarios where, and going back to the perspective and the attitude about the thing, if you see a group of people that's in a room who all have a key stake in a project or an initiative.
Yeah.
Let's say if someone takes a snapshot of that and somebody from the outside is looking in and they say, wow, these voices are elevated. Or you see some people are off to the side. You see people feeling they can't get their point across. Or you might see some that look like they're debating, or maybe even look like they're arguing of some sort. Exactly. They're saying, oh, wow, they're just too passionate about the thing. One could look at that and say, that is chaotic, that is unhealthy, that's unproductive, that's going nowhere. One could have that perspective about the thing, but another perspective could be, like you mentioned, there's a lot of passion here. There's a lot of passion here. There's a lot of buy-in. There's a lot of interest. There's a lot of desire and commitment to reaching that end goal.
Yeah.
So it's two different things. Like one is like, all right, nope, this isn't going anywhere. One could say, wow, that's exactly the type of energy that we need. People who are going to fight to get there. So it goes back to that perspective.
Yeah.
How do you see the thing?
Yeah.
Are you looking at it like, okay, this is something that's going to hinder, or you're looking at, okay, we could take what we have here and this could turn into something of high value?
Yeah, because I think that most people can attest to this. Like, if I don't care, I'm not gonna. I'm just like, okay, sure, whatever. That's cool, right? But when I'm invested and when I'm passionate and when I feel like, yes, this is a thing that I want to see win, if there is the smallest piece that I think could be adjusted to make it better, I'm gonna say something.
Yeah.
And I might make the person who spent the last 2 days really focused in on that project feel a certain type of way, because it's for them, it's like, oh, I feel very closely connected to this thing. So by you saying that it could be better, I'm taking that personally. So now we're switching back over to that unhealthy conflict piece, because now I'm internalizing what you're saying about the project that I've worked so hard on, instead of taking a step back and saying, okay, how is this person phrasing it? Are they phrasing it that, yes, I really appreciate you putting the time into this work. What we could potentially do is we can try doing X, Y, and Z to make this project even better. And how do you feel about it, right? And so is that person coming across in a collaborative way where I don't feel like I need to internalize it, but I can take that step back and say, okay, yes, I put a lot of time into it, but that time has been acknowledged, for one. And two, now this person is giving me a different perspective of something that I could potentially do to enhance it. Which is not something that's always easy, because I'm guilty of that. I would take time and I would go off into my little chamber laboratory and I would start working on things and making them absolutely perfect in my mind. And I would bring them to people and get feedback. And I'm like, this is good. This is ready to go. What do you mean? And so what I've learned, so that I can welcome in feedback and have that more healthy conversation, was that I need to collaborate a lot earlier in the process instead of going into that laboratory, work, and then present. It was easier for me to get some ideas up front.
Now, what was your moment of realization where you saw that was something that could work in your advantage?
I think it goes back to what you said about, is it producing or is it not producing? Is this productive conflict or unproductive, healthy versus unhealthy? I was realizing that I would get disappointed or saddened by the fact that this thing that I spent all this time on was not being productive, because when I got other eyes on it and other perspectives, it was like, it hurt a little bit, it stung a little bit, but then once I was able to be open-minded to their perspective, I was able to see that what we were able to produce as a team after the facts and after we received that feedback, it was better. So then it was like, okay, I need to change in this moment. You know, it's not them providing me the feedback, it's me that needs to take that step back and change.
That's good. That's good. So you saw the value in that, and I think that's a key. That's a key component of development, being able to see that. Say, hey, you know, you had a method, you had a system. You say, okay, maybe I need to bring in get some more insight early on, because later on, now you're feeling almost attacked in a certain way.
Yes.
Yeah. So I guess that's another tip, is to know yourself.
Yes.
To
Awareness.
know yourself. Yeah, awareness. Because some might, and I think it's great to collaborate sooner than later, but some might wait, and then, like you said, you feel that this feedback or this insight is coming. It's like, wow, I done put all this work into it. Now you're too late again. Like you said, now you're internalizing that. Now you're taking it a lot personal. So know oneself.
Yeah.
Know oneself. That's another key. So what would you say? So like so with the unhealthy conflict, clearly that does not lead to progress. It comes with some pain and maybe pulling you away, drawing you away from doing the thing. So that unhealthy conflict, why is that so critical, and how can we better take advantage of healthy conflict? Because when we think of conflict,
some people
we might be like, hey, I don't want any conflict in my life, period.
Yeah.
And I think that's normal. And I think that's okay, because that's real. But why is that? How can we take that? Why should we take that and leverage it to our advantage?
Yeah, I think that really is what the heart of diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging really is about, right? yes, we can all get in a room and we can all collaborate. But if we have that group think mentality where we're all thinking the same thing, or we all agree with the leader in the room or the most senior team member in the room, we might say, "Oh, sure, this is great. Let's do that." And on the inside, we're like, this is gonna crash and burn, right? And so if that is our thought and we're not feeling included in the conversation, we don't feel that our opinions and our thoughts are valued. We don't feel like we can contribute in a way, or even that we should contribute in a way, then we're going to send something out, a product out, a process, a project, a thing out that has one or two perspectives, but the collective whole that is being missed and not represented. And so I do think that is very important for, I say it all the time, see something, say something, right? Like, even if it's just the thing that I thought, it's my first reaction, it's just the thing that I'm thinking in the moment. If I'm in that room, in order for me to make sure that I'm contributing, I have to feel comfortable and I have to feel that that perspective is welcomed. What do you think?
I think there's value in there. So what I'm thinking of how to get there. So going back to what you mentioned before, that self-awareness, knowing that we bring value to any room that we're in. If we're at the table, we bring value to that table. We're in that room, we bring value to that room. Any situation, any space that we're in, we have the opportunity, the ability to bring value. Now, sometimes that you could be up against a system or a structure or a culture of the dynamic or the institution, the business that you're working with. But maybe that's not such a thing.
Yeah.
So maybe it's like, I've seen somebody else, like, hey, I know what you mean, that turn this into healthy conflict. But from my experience, I may have seen people where that didn't work in their favor. So now it's all about, is it worth it to you?
Yeah.
Is it worth it to you to stay in that situation?
Yeah.
Or know the value that, hey, I still need to see something. I still need to say something. And it could come with maybe you communicate it in a different way.
Yeah.
Maybe you communicate in a different way. But that's a tool that we can really use to our advantage. As far as, like, because we could take it, let's say, because for you, if you see that you're in this, you have this conflict that's going on. Now, maybe years ago, a long time ago, maybe you would have said, you know what, let me just mind my business and keep it moving. But now, based on what you've read, what you've learned, what you've studied, what you've experienced, you know for a fact that you can say something. You can say something, you know how to say it, you know how to read the room, you know how to observe, you know how to communicate to get your message across, where you can take that conflict and use it to your advantage. So it goes back to the one, we got to know that we can bring value to the situation. Know that, hey, by me saying this, I can bring value to it. And two, know that you can make a difference about it. Another thing, so that self-awareness is one thing. That's one way we can say, okay, all right, I'm in the midst of unhealthy conflict. I'm going to turn this to healthy conflict because I'm going to make it better. And sometimes making it better is by saying something about the situation. So that's one thing we do about it. Also, I think it comes with being strategic as well. I think one of the things in being strategic is say, okay, in this room, and because conflict comes with, it could be one-on-one, it could be you working with a group, it could be you working with an organization, it could be working with a large group of people. Kind of make time to think about, okay, what's the end goal here? What's the end goal of what this group is trying to accomplish? And once you identify with that end goal, maybe you can kind of like find your way in there to see how you can influence that. So that self-awareness, being aware of the end goal, being aware of the what the group is trying to accomplish, and those are kind of like different strategies that you can apply in order to kind of like find your way in and say, hey, how can I flip this unhealthy conflict to turn it into healthy conflict so I can use it to our advantage so that it can produce something valuable for us.
And I think it's very unrealistic in the workplace or even in our personal lives to think that we're going to agree on something every single time.
Yeah.
I think that's just like, that's not even a real thing. Like, you and I as husband and wife may agree on 80% of things, but that 20%, let me tell you. But there's going to be a percentage of things that we disagree on. And that is a real thing. Right? And so when we're in a workspace and we're working on projects and we're passionate about these different things, it's natural for us to disagree on something. And when we are disagreeing on it, it's so important for us to get our voices heard because we need to feel heard as people. We need to get that perspective to feel heard. And sometimes we'll have a disagreement and I'm like, but do you understand what I mean? Because if you can acknowledge what I'm feeling and tell me that you heard me, I'll stop going on and on and on and on and on to explain my perspective.
On and on.
And I'll be able to now start thinking about the solution versus getting my voice out. And so employees in the workplace are no different. We want to get our thoughts out. We want to get our perspective out so that we feel heard. And then once we feel heard as adults in that space and make a decision, we still may disagree with it. We still may have that hesitation that says, you know what? I don't know if this is going to work, but I trust the folks that I'm with enough. I trust the process enough. And I trust the fact that I at least got my voice and my thoughts out there enough that I'm going to 100% commit to the decision that is being made in these four walls. And so that concept is called disagree, but commit. And so that's why as leaders, it's so important to cultivate an environment of, okay, let's get it out there. What do we think? What are our thoughts? We're going to lay it all out here. This is the space where we're going to put it all out there. Because once we leave this room, the decision is made and we're going to be 100% committed to the process that we as a team have decided was going to be that process. And I hear you in your meetings all the time. And like pushing your team members to state their thoughts and state their views and state their opinions, because it really is our job as leaders to cultivate that environment where people feel like they can share their thoughts and perspectives and feel heard.
That's good. That's good. Knowing this value, knowing the space. The as you said that, it kind of made me think about. So you kind of alluded to this earlier. Where it's not sometimes, don't take it personal. It's like even when we're like in that midst, there's times again from that awareness. So it's having that self-awareness, also having that awareness as to other people. So sometimes you gotta watch people. And sometimes people might come at you. This isn't saying that some people might not come at you. They might come at you the wrong way. That's a fact. Control how you respond to that for sure. Yes. So we're not saying that, everybody is coming at you from the right place. Some people may not be, but also understand that sometimes the people who are with you in that conflict, they may be operating from within their scope. Like maybe they just don't know that you mentioned the triggers. Maybe they just don't know that that's something that's going to trigger someone else, or if they're providing or pushing for the direction over here. Maybe they just don't know what you experience, seeing that, that way over there might not work. So it could look as if, wow, this person's just sending us in the wrong direction, conflict. Now I'm about to protect myself at all costs. Now, you know what? I don't even want to be in this room. But we could take that and say, hey, you know what? Let me pull you to a side. Hey, let me kick it with you 1 second. Hey, just heads up. I experienced this type of situation where we ran this same type of play, and here are some roadblocks that we encountered. What about if we considered doing this? So now you all are building some rapport off that conversation. Now you all are communicating. You shared your experience. That person may give the opportunity to share their experience. Now you all kind of come back in the middle, and like you said, hey, hear each other, and then maybe you all can kind of move in a different direction. But that's just an example how you can take that unhealthy conflict, and flip it to healthy conflict, and now you all are more aligned with where you're going.
Nice.
Now you might not agree. You still might not agree.
It's
but
very possible.
Right. But what you did do is that you communicated it, you voiced your concerns, and if the right attitudes were there, you heard each other out. So now you all can kind of game plan on where you go next.
Nice. I like it. Okay.
All right. So look, that's we talked about unhealthy conflict, and we talked about ways we can flip that unhealthy conflict over to healthy conflict. Things, experiences, situations that we can actually use to our advantage. So just because it may look unhealthy, that don't mean that we can't turn it to healthy. Again, be aware, have that self-awareness, have that awareness of yourself, have that awareness of other people. Using your voice, make sure that you are heard. Make sure that you're being open-minded. Make sure you're approaching the conflict with the right attitude so that you can use that to your advantage so you can accomplish what you're looking to accomplish on a personal or in a professional fashion. Unhealthy conflict, flip to healthy conflict,
There it is.
that's going to turn us to success.
Yes.
So that's it. That's what we're talking about today. So we do ask, again, like, subscribe, share this with your personal professional network. Share us some examples of what you've done when you were in the midst of unhealthy conflict. Share some examples of what you do to turn unhealthy conflict into healthy conflict, and what are some strategies and tactics that you use in order to maneuver through those things. We love to hear from you. This is
Keisha Woods.
I'm Mike Woods. We're the Woods Collab. This is the Woods Collab podcast. Peace.